For a long time, we could take some satisfaction in a narrative of progress in human rights. And the Arab Spring seemed at first to be part of that narrative. And of course, it's not now. Do you see a positive legacy for the Arab Spring? I mean, it's, you know, they say that to make an omelet, you have to break eggs, but it's hard to see an omelet being made anywhere except perhaps in Tunisia.
I was in Tunisia a few weeks ago and met with all the senior officials, starting with the president. And it is clear that they have made huge advances. Tunisia today is not the Tunisia of pre-2011 or 2012. The Tunisia of today has a new constitution, and there are new structures built to support the human rights agenda. But it was clear to me, and it was made with some feeling of emotion behind it, that Tunisia is not receiving the financial support it needs to receive. And it requires budgetary support of a sizable amount. And if it doesn't, you know, its future will become a future where anxieties will grow. And so I think the international community, and especially now in the context of this migration discussion in Europe, needs to invest heavily in a country like Tunisia. It's not without its own challenges and problems, and certainly they have human rights violations, which we raised as well. But clearly it stands in stark contrast to many countries that have fallen into the abyss. And one hopes that with enough support behind the Tunisian example, that yes, indeed, there will be an example from the Arab Spring, the first example, which will stand out. There was a very interesting point made to me the other day by a Tunisian representative of a Tunisian NGO. And it is a striking point, and it's an obvious point, and astute, like all sort of obvious points when they're first made. And he said, you know, we place heavy emphasis on development. You know, when you compare UNDP's budget to our own, or the size and overall scale of ODA on the part of the international community, what's contributed to, by comparison, what is contributed to human rights in the way that we're supported is minute or very small. And so this Tunisian representative said, there are only two Arab countries that fulfilled their Millennium Development Goals, Tunisia and Egypt. Yeah? So, you know, in 2011, they were well on the way to fulfilling those goals, and yet it did not inhibit the people from taking to the street and voicing their discontent. And so there's a lesson there, you know, that people need to feel their dignity honored, their self-worth or their worth respected. And so I think whenever we look at whether it be development, peace and security, it must all be done through a human rights sensitive lens. And it's the one pillar of the three-pillar system that is the UN that is severely underfunded when you compare it to, I know 3% of the UN's budget goes to human rights, 3%. And how can that be supported? I made clear last year that the Swiss spend 10 times more on chocolate a year than we have as a budget. And I know Swiss chocolate is very good, and I would support their industry. I do support it, you know, by my own consumption. But it's you know, how can you properly square that? And then when you take the broader figures, you know, the size of global GDP this year, I don't know if anyone has that figure, you know. And then you look at the investment into the sort of human rights agenda around the world, and by comparison, you know, it does raise some obvious questions.